Aloha everyone, this is Leimomi Keliikuli, intuitive soul and mindset coach here. And so today I'm here with Kathy Haan. I'm really excited to talk with her because we're going to talk about business and mindset and share more about her expertise, which I'm really excited to hear about since I also talked on your show. It's kind of a good thing that we get to talk back about each other. So to tell us more about who you are, what you do, how did you become a master genius at what you do now?
Okay, cool. Yeah. So thank you again for having me. It's nice to connect with you again. So I'm Kathy Haan, and I help women launch and scale their online coaching businesses. And I do that through a bunch of different ways, through one-on-one coaching, through group coaching, live events like my one in Chicago I'm having, retreats and courses. And how did I become an expert or a master at what I do? So I've been actually coaching for, it'll be 8 years in July. I started as both like a health and fitness coach after I lost 123 pounds. And then I was also helping all kinds of people like start their online coaching businesses. But after a few years, that grind got tough of like having to like be all things to all people. And so over the years, I've really like narrowed that down. And now I work exclusively with high achieving women launching and scaling versus all of these other things.
Well, that's cool that you kind of started with like health coaching and now you're like doing more in business. Like what made you make that switch? It's just like it felt better to do that.
Great question. So I have had like weight issues pretty much my whole life. And I found myself close to 300 pounds. And I had literally tried everything in the book to like lose the weight and keep it off. The only thing I hadn't tried was like keeping others accountable while keeping myself accountable. And so I signed up as a health and fitness coach, which is crazy to think, you know, a 300, almost 300 pound person signing up as a health and fitness coach. But it worked. Like in a little over a year, I lost 123 pounds. And then people kept asking me that story, like, how'd you do it? What'd you eat? You know, can you create videos for me? And I'm like, I'm not going to create a video specifically for you because I get this request like 10 times a day. So then I started blogging about it. And that blog got a ton of traction. And then companies and brands started sending me free stuff to like blog about. And during this period, like I ended up like going to school and getting a bachelor's and an MBA as well. And so like I already had like that business mindset. And I hated corporate. Like I've done that. Sucks. Just because like, what do you mean? Like I can't take unlimited vacation time, you know? Like sucks. So I started making really good money on my blog. And then it just kind of was like, oh, snap, maybe I could make this my full-time gig. And so it just kind of like morphed from there because then people were like, what, you make money online? I want to make money online too. So it was a very natural progression for me.
That's beautiful. Like you just took, you know, the thing that was really important to you at the moment, and then you actually monetized it.
Yeah. And I think that's really important to make a distinction of too. Like, yeah, it's important to like, you know, monetize the thing that you love. But on that same note, you need to make sure that you're monetizing something that will sell that you love. And I'll give an example. Like, I really, really like kickboxing. However, I'm not great at it. I just really enjoy it. And so I have no business like starting a business for kickboxing, you know, like, and I could use so many different examples like that. Like I love telling people about all these places they could travel to, but I would never want to be a travel agent, you know? So it's
Yeah.
kind of like a trifecta, like passion, ability to monetize, and like it being worthy of monetizing.
Yeah, you need those key things in order to actually monetize it.
Right, exactly.
Which is kind of cool because it also goes with your mindset too with it, which is what you help people with too, right? To figure that out.
It's so funny because, like when people ask, everybody wants to know, like, what's your title? What type of coach are you? And I say, okay, well, I'm a business coach. Sometimes I say I'm a success coach. Like, your title doesn't matter. It's just like, what do you really help people with? And the funny thing about business coaching is like 90% of it is mindset work. Like a little bit is like implementation help and like strategy, but the rest is like self-worth issues, confidence, a myriad of different things, all related to mindset.
Right. Which is funny because I'm like the other spectrum, right? I do also that, but more in the soul alignment, business alignment, more towards the soul. But everything is mindset also with that too. And you fall on the other end, which is the mindset, the messaging, and figuring out like how you monetize it.
Right. Exactly.
In the middle, it's always going to be mindset.
Right. Yep. Exactly. It's always like the big bubble. Like if you think about it, mindset is really what drives like everybody to do whatever. Like I make a lot of money because I'm feeling really good about myself and I'm confident and all of this. But if my mindset was crap, I'd be broke. And I have been broke, super broke for most of my life. So the mindset piece is what you got to fix first. And I don't say fix, but you need to, it's like a muscle. So you've got to like exercise that every day.
Yeah. Like reminding yourself like, hey, like don't go down the drain.
And it has to be intentional too, because if somebody is just like, oh, I got to think positive thoughts today, like that's a lot different than like, okay, I'm going to practice EFT or like journaling, and then I'm going to take inspired action based on like what I've learned during this session,
Mm-hmm. So when growing up as a child, like what lit you up? Like how does that play into who you've become today?
It's funny that you mention it because when I was a little kid, I used to want to be a dentist. And it's not for reasons that you think. It's not for like notoriety. It's not for like getting to be called doctor, or because I really care about taking care of my teeth. I mean, I think I've got nice teeth and they're straight, but I wanted to be a dentist because I don't know if they do this everywhere, but the dentist that I went to as a kid, anytime when you're done, he would pull open his drawer full of like prizes after you get your teeth cleaned. And I wanted that drawer to myself. And it's so funny to think about that now, that was what motivated me. But in retrospect, like looking back, what's really motivated me throughout the years and as a small child is feeling like I matter, like that I'm making a difference and that I'm worthy. Now I was kicked out of the house at 14. So like that is really, really destructive to a little girl's sense of self-worth. And, there's abuse in there and drug addiction and all of this crap in there. And so that's something I've had to be really intentional about like checking in with that mindset piece of like, okay, I am worthy. Like, even when I'm triggered because I have PTSD, like when somebody's like, no, like you're not good enough for this, or no, I don't want to hire you for this. Like I have to be a lot more intentional about like working through that than somebody else who hasn't gone through what I've gone through would. So how that translates to now is I find a lot of my clients have similar self-worth issues that I help them through. Confidence, charging their worth, making sure that they're not being a doormat or getting taken advantage of, that type of thing.
Wow. So being that was just like the bad experiences, you kind of like turned it around to be like, hey, you could actually recreate a whole life and business that you really want, right? Even despite your circumstances or where you came from or the trauma that you experienced.
Right, exactly. And translating that even further in my business and how that's like evolved my business is like one of my signature programs is a one-on-one like weekend intensive called Weekend to Launch, where somebody comes in, we fly somewhere, they get the hair and makeup done, a branding photo shoot, and then they launch their coaching business by the time the weekend's over. So like their funnel and everything. And that's really, really great. However, it was missing a very, very important element that was really at the core of like what motivates me. And that's community, is being a part of something. And so that's why I alluded to it earlier. I'm having an event in Chicago called Weekend to Launch Live, where it's very similar for coaches and those who want to start or scale their coaching businesses, but it's focused heavily on community and collaboration.
I like how you took that idea that was really important and then married it with something that was already working.
Right, because, people so many times say it takes a village, like to raise kids, and I am totally in agreement with that. But it also takes a village in many different aspects of life. Like you can't do business alone. Like solopreneur is great, but you're going to burn out very quickly because you can't be all things to all people, and you can't have your hand in every single pot in your kitchen. Your kitchen where you're like cooking up your business,
Right. So tell us maybe a vulnerable story about your life or business. Like what did it feel like when you're really misaligned? And then how did you get back into alignment?
Oh, so, I think it's very appropriate that you and I are having this conversation now because last week or the week before, maybe 2 weeks ago now, I shared that it was my anniversary of the day that I tried to kill myself. Now, I had been in an abusive marriage and I had PTSD pretty severely, not only from like childhood, but also getting re-triggered in my marriage. And I was super, super like over medicated to the point where all I did was sleep. And when I wasn't sleeping, I was crying. I felt like a terrible mom, first of all. I felt like a terrible wife because I was constantly told all of these awful things. And then I began to feel like a burden. And I tried to get help. I went to like intensive outpatient therapy, like literally every day for like 4 hours a day. We would have therapy, group therapy. And I finally had like gotten the courage to leave my husband. And so that night when I tried to leave him and told him like, this is over, we're done, he had me convinced that because of my depression, I'd never see my kids again. So he gaslighted me and I believed him. And so that night I overdosed on 32 prescription sleeping pills in an attempt to take my life. And I tell this story a lot. And the reason I tell this story is because I want to impress upon people that it doesn't matter what your circumstances are, like you have a choice. And so that night, one of the last things I heard as the ambulance was taking me away, as being wheeled out on a stretcher, was "Mommy die, Mommy die," as my 2-year-old runs up the stairs, like sobbing, screaming. And the last thought that I had before, like I lost consciousness was, oh my God, what did I do? Like, this is the biggest mistake I have ever made. God, please don't take me. And like, I'll do whatever it takes to like turn things around. So I spent 9 days in the hospital. And when I got out, I left him while he was at work. And things were really hard for a really long time, but I made like radical life changes. Like I moved out. I quit my job because that sucked. It was corporate and I was missing like 6 months of work at a time anyway because of my anxiety. So I quit my job. I got a new job, like just working temp assignments, and I started going to like personal development conferences, like really, really immersing myself in that, and decided that I was going to up level not only like my business, but my personal life. So cut ties with a lot of people, stopped watching reality TV. I loved like Real Housewives. I had to stop watching that stuff because it just fueled my anxiety and my not enoughness. And so I ended up getting an MBA after that, ended up remarrying. Now, like in the last 9 months, I've been to 14 countries. I'm going to another 5 this month. It's crazy looking back to see like how radically like my life has changed in just a short period of time. Like I made that choice. Like I was done. Enough was enough. I wasn't going to live paycheck to paycheck anymore. I was tired of going to the pawn shop and like pawning our lawnmower to make rent, or like having to find cans on the side of the road to like get milk, sucked. I didn't want to do that anymore. So that's a really long way of saying like, you got a choice no matter your circumstances.
Yeah, I think because of that experience, it makes you a better coach, right? It makes you better, like not only empathetic, but you can actually really relate to their circumstances and
Absolutely.
like feel into why they feel what they do,
right?
Whether they're disempowered or this kind of situation that you were in, but that not giving up, right? Like saying, hey, no, let's keep going. Let's figure this out and work on it. And again, it comes back to that mindset. Like, what do you actually want to create? Why do you want to live? Why do you want to impact more people? I love how you were, sharing that depth of what can happen when you're really, really not aligned or even connected to your soul. So now that you feel more connected to your soul, like what kind of like shifts that you notice have changed?
Well, I mean, I put on a lot of weight because I'm eating a lot better and traveling the world. And so that's maybe the downside of things. But gosh, like things like are so radically different now. Like when I'm not stressed about money, like my marriage is so much better. Like my husband's a stay-at-home dad. And so like I'm not like raging at him all the time. And then my kids get to witness like what a marriage should look like versus what they had seen previously with their dad and I. Just I really love travel. Like I want to see, do, and be all of the things. And so that's why I travel so much. And just like, but probably the coolest thing is like, I've kind of broken that cycle, like with my dad anyway, we grew up in poverty. With my mom, it was a different story, but I got to see some really heartbreaking things living in poverty as a child. And now it's like, I'm creating generational wealth. And that gives me goosebumps thinking about like, just a few years ago, it was a totally different story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think when you actually live that poverty life and then you see the contrast of like how good it can be, right? You're like, yeah, anybody can really create this. If you came down from rock bottom, you can for sure come back up.
When I was living in Oregon with my mom and stepdad, like it was a totally different circumstance than the one I was thrown into when I got kicked out. We lived in a huge home on the side of a volcano. We had 2 Mercedes, a Porsche, a Carnegie in the driveway, a 44-foot sailboat down at the yacht club. And then in the middle of the night, my stepdad kicks me out at 14. I had a plane ticket to visit my dad for spring break anyway in Iowa. So I took a couple of suitcases and I went to Iowa and was thrown into, a town of like 1,200 people in a trailer surrounded by corn, where, I would hear my dad crying over his checkbook at night, trying to figure out how he's going to put food on the table or pay for the medications that he literally could not live without. Like it was the dynamic between the two was a huge contrast. But on that same note, like looking back, even though so much crap has happened, like, I don't know if I would have changed anything that I've gone through. Just because, like, if I hadn't been kicked out at 14, I wouldn't have known how beautiful, you know, a relationship between a daughter and a dad could be. Because he was in poor health my entire life. And because my parents were 19 years apart in age. And so, like, when I got kicked out, like, I moved in with him, and it worked out well because I could take care of him. Because he had been disabled. And even into adulthood, he lived with my husband and I. And until 3 years ago, he'd been on hospice in our home for 2 years, but he passed away 3 years ago. And, like, our relationship was so tight because I took care of him. So anytime, like, I'm faced with, like, serious crap where it's like, why me? I really force myself to look at, like, okay, where's the silver lining in this? It's like, yeah, it sucked to get kicked out at 14, but on that same note, I was able to settle in Iowa and have a beautiful relationship with my dad.
That's priceless time.
Yeah.
Time and energy, of course.
Yeah, exactly.
So share with us a little bit more about, like, when someone wants to work with you, like, what kind of transformation do they go through, or what are the things that they normally experience?
Yeah, so a lot of the people that I work with are brand new to the industry, who are, you know, typically in corporate, who've done all of the right things their entire life, checked all the boxes of all the things they're supposed to do, you know, get an education, with the corporate job, with the salary and the benefits, but who, you know, they've been high achievers, but feel like corporate is suffocating them, that there's so much more to life, that they don't just want to settle for the status quo. They want to create a life by design rather than a life by default. And so whether you are a seasoned coach or a new coach, like, that's what I help with. Like, I help you create what that life you desire is, and a plan to execute that. And then, you know, we work through that. So through, whether it's my courses or one-on-one coaching, group coaching, my retreat this fall is sold out, but I'll have more retreats. Like, that's the cool thing. Like, when you are, like, doing what you're supposed to do, like, it's crazy. Like, I didn't even have to put up, like, a sales page for my retreat. You know, it's just like, hey, I have this going on. You know, I know you and I have talked briefly about what you want. I think this would be a good fit. And they trust you because you've helped them.
You help them get to their, like, next level that they wouldn't have done or experienced if they didn't, you know, take your program or your courses. And the right timing.
Exactly. And so a lot of people are like, well, like, how do I get really, like, masterful at being a coach? Because I really want to, like, master it. And I've divided, like, the coaching industry into, like, 3 basic types. And I actually created a quiz that I'll share a link to, where you can figure out what type of coach you are. And then it'll also tell you, like, how you can then use that to speak to your audience in a way that's going to be really authentic and will resonate with them.
This sounds perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
So how do you define success? You know, what kind of course, you went through a lot of pain and a lot of, like, suffering through this process, but, like, well, how do you actually define it?
Do you have any idea how many times I've been asked this question? And, like, and, you know, it's funny, like, as I evolve and grow, like, my answer changes literally every time. Like, 10 years ago, I would have told you like being able to pay my bills. But now as I've evolved and grown as a person, like success to me is being happy, like, and having choices without being restricted by anything or anyone. Choice and freedom to do what I want when I want, because I have unlimited time and resources.
I think that's important for people to know that that is even possible, because the choice for you was what you were looking for beforehand when you didn't have the money to pay your bills or any of those things. You didn't have those choices when you didn't have them.
That, and it's like, if somebody like me and I've only shared like a sliver of what I've gone through, but if somebody like me who statistically should be dead or in prison could like come out on the other side of all of this crap, like literally anyone here can do that. Anybody that's listening right now can do that.
Absolutely. It's going from disempowerment to empowerment.
Yeah, exactly.
So any last advice you have for us before we go?
So I've got 3 little tips for you of how you can create like radical life change. The first one, and I wrote it down, is to hire somebody, an expert, because there's no reason you need to figure this all out on your own. The second thing is to have community. So surround yourself with high vibe babes who like take no shit and will push you continually to like be your best self. And then the last tip is to swallow that fear. Your biophysical responses to fear is the same as excitement. So kind of like flip that coin and be like, okay, instead of like, oh my gosh, I'm so scared of this, like, oh, this is really exciting. And you'll see that shift, not only like in the way you like carry those words, but also like your outlook on whatever it is you're facing.
Oh, beautiful. That's awesome tips. So how everyone can get in touch with you through social media or your website, or you have anything that you want to share with us?
So you can find me at kathyhaan.com, and that's KathyHaan.com. And then also I have a blog, which is idyllicpursuit.com. And I'll have links for you as well as a direct link to that quiz that'll tell you what type of coach you are. And you can always shoot me a message on Facebook or shoot me an email as well. And you can find those links on my site.
Thank you so much for taking this time with us and sharing your story. I mean, this is amazing. And it's true, like if you've gone all the way down the drain, you can actually get back up and even, create the life that you're really, really desiring and by your design. It sounds like you help exactly with that in people's life and their business. So thank you so much for being here. And everybody else who's listening, we're going to be continuing this LeimomiTV series, and I have amazing, just like Kathy, 6-7 figures, entrepreneurs who are just doing amazing things in the world. And I'm so lucky to even have these beautiful conversations with them because they're always busy. So listening to this series, I probably give you amazing insight and ways that you can improve your life and your business. So you guys all have a beautiful day. Aloha.
Aloha. Thank you.